There was a child went forth every day, and the first object he looked upon, that object he became. And that object became part of him for the day or a certain part of the day, or for many years, or stretching cycles of years. So spoke Walt Whitman.
My name is Kehrer. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. I live in Cambridge.
You are leaving Cambridge. Why?
Well, like a lot of families, we have kind of outgrown our space given we have a toddler. But another major reason is we were really hoping to send our daughter to what is called a forest kindergarten. And currently there isn't one nearby or close enough such that we would be able to commute. And there are fabulous preschools in the area, but a forest kindergarten is something extremely different. And this is where the children are actually outdoors almost 100% of the time, unless the weather is really inclement or extremely hot or rainy, and they either stay in or they have other accommodations.
So what kind of an education are they getting there?
Well, it's very nature-based, of course. I think there's a lot of free play. It's not as structured as many preschools might be. Kids are supposed to get pretty dirty. They might even, depending on the forest kindergarten, they may play with things like knives. Hammers, they may build things, they may climb trees. So I think in some respects there's a little bit more risk taking according to what we consider risk today. But if you go back maybe 20, 30 plus years, that was just normal or routine play for children. The name of the school that she's attending, there are actually a few in the greater Boston area. The particular school she'll be attending is called Sprouts. It's in Millis, which is Metro West, and it is actually located on a working farm. I don't believe media is part of the curriculum. I'm almost positive it's not. It's actually a question I've never asked to get a definitive answer, but my assumption is that it is not part of the program.
For you personally, this focus on early academics, that seems the opposite of the direction you want to go in.
Yes, based on the research that I've done, it's actually counterproductive. And if you look at many schools, for example, in Finland, where those students are actually scoring at the very top worldwide on international standardized testing, those children, and even German kids, for example, where forest kindergartens started, they don't start academic learning until about age 6 or 7. They may start a little here and there, but really formalized academics, it starts a bit later, and they've shown that kids can burn out if it starts too early. They lose their interest in school at a much earlier age, and that time that they would be doing something else actually kind of harms the development process. So the day starts, it is located on a farm. It's more or less a vegetable farm, but they do have some animals. So the day starts with feeding the animals, and then they walk across a little bridge that's been built there's actually a yurt for this particular school that they've created for, bad rain, etc. So then they go walk over there. But yeah, the program is run by educators. It's not run by, hippie bohemians who just thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have kids running around in the dirt. It's very well thought out. It is education based, absolutely. But yeah, I think, they have probably a lot of organized activities focused on the seasons. What's going on in the environment. I'm sure they incorporate the farm into the curriculum to learn about, how things grow, what's required, and, a lot of, like you kind of said, common sense. Like,
Yeah.
what sustains us? And, the earth is obviously a huge component of that.
So, although not technically hippy-dippy, it's definitely very hippie pagan sounding, which, you know what, we as humans are and should be, and maybe.
Yeah.
Now, did you want to do this because you feel like as the human race is getting further away from our, like, hands in the mud roots, or what were you thinking?
Right. Well, to be quite frank, I'm not a tremendous nature person myself. So, it's interesting that this has become, pretty much the number one priority for my child's education, or how she's going to start her education. But I think the reason for that is more of a response to what I see in terms of children utilizing technology at such a young age, and also having such structured lifestyles and not very much independence. So I fear for what will happen over time if kids aren't allowed to have a little bit of freedom outside of, parents constantly being around watching. And of course, there's going to be teachers there. But like I said, kind of allowing kids to take a little bit more risk and learning on their own what their limits are to a large extent, and also thinking creatively, not being constrained by something very passive that they spend their time on. So it's not really, now I've become more interested in, okay, what can nature give us? It's sort of an awakening. And I think I've developed a newfound appreciation, and I hope as a result we'll end up going camping and, visiting more national parks over the course of, time. But yeah, it's actually changed my outlook on what's important.
Christine here.
And the name of this school?
Sprouts Farm and Forest Kindergarten.
How long has it been here?
This is our second year.
Have you ever done anything like this before in your life?
No, not like this, but I've been an educator in early education for over 25 years.
So 2 years, and so far it seems to be a success.
It is. We've doubled our enrollment in this second year since last year.
How far away do kids come from, like, how far away?
I think the farthest is Canton. They have about a half an hour, but they're willing to travel because they really believe in the program. I think it's probably twofold. I think that media and all of the Facebook and screen time is impacting families and children, but this having a farm and forest kindergarten is older than that, and it's more primal. It's us being connected to the earth for the benefit of everyone. So while they're connected, I don't think that it is necessarily coming out of that. I think people are just more aware of how good they feel and how good their children feel when they're learning authentically, holistically, foundationally outside in nature. My partner Lisa and I really believe that we are, as the educators, not the sage on the stage, but the guide on the side. So we're facilitating and allowing children to learn authentically. They're out there figuring things out, problem solving, critical thinking, all of those buzzwords that you hear that employers are looking for and aren't finding in the young people that have not started out in this way. Okay. That's all happening, and it's incredible how infrequently we need to interject ourselves into their learning. We set the stage for them, and we're right there, but they're manipulating and discovering, and their curiosity and their joy for learning, there's no ceiling. It's just incredible. We heard the Farmer's Almanac said a lot of snow this year, so we'll see how it goes. We have a wood stove, and that provides warmth when we need shelter, but we also educate the parents and the children on how to dress for weather. That old adage, there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. So 3 and 4 year olds are talking about, Miss Christine, I have my base layer on. So they are really dressed for all weather.
And if we had the winter we had with 105 inches of snow? Would you spend a lot of time in the yurt?
Again, it really depends on the kids. We check in with fingers, nose, and toes. And if they're at all cold, then of course we come inside. But there's a lot to do. There are a lot of adventures to have with that amount of snow.
And the word yurt, what is that German?
No, I mean, I believe it's from Mongolia. Like the nomads it would be made out of leather and hides, and it was transportable. They'd wrap it up and take it with them. But the circle is what really, and the low impact on the environment is what really drew me to this as a building. We plan to have a program for educators, and not everyone is lucky enough to have a farm and all this wide open space, so we really want to help educators understand how important it is, no matter where you are, that you get children outside for longer periods of time. I do think that the parents of this program, we've talked about them being this bottom up, and because I'm involved with the education community, I'm coming from the top down, and we're hoping that we can make a change, but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
We're dropping those pebbles into the water and creating ripples and saying this is a valid way for children to learn, and it should be an option.
Now, so you guys are just preschool, kindergarten?
We are. We're ages 3 to 6. However, we have some families that are aging out, and they're like, what next?
Is there?
And we said, we're looking to expand. We definitely want to continue this model
For
to older
ages?
kids. I would like it to go through high school.
Tell me the relationship between you and the farm.
Well, Laura and Charlie Tangerini are otherworldly. They have created an amazing community here in Millis with their CSA and their hay rides and just everyone coming in and all the farmers that are employed here. It's a family. And I've known them for 17 years, coming here to get my vegetables and my plants. And I brought this idea to Laura along with my partner Lisa, and she said, yeah, let's do it. She sees the value in connecting children to the land. So we have that other part. It's not just nature. It's all of this incredible food. And so we are out in the fields, and we pick food, and we talk about it, and we eat it. And there's a really wonderful relationship going on with the farm and with Laura and Charlie. I think that schools like ours will be very helpful for Mother Earth, because we are teaching the children about her and how important it is for the survival of everyone. And their parents feel the same way. So if children don't get into nature and don't know about nature, they're not going to fight for it.
Christine.
Thank you so much for making the trek out here in the mud.
It was really real. The mud is really real. All right. Let's start from the beginning. Name.
Amy Green.
Are you an educator?
I am. I'm both a trained was a former teacher, middle school math and science. But beyond that, I've realized like all the jobs in my life have had a teaching or training aspect to it. And as soon as I learn new information, that's my impulse. It's like, oh, I have to share this with somebody. So it's very deep within me to teach.
And you're also a mother.
I am, yeah.
And so you're the mother of a 2-year-old. Are you engaging with a lot of other parents around Cambridge right now, or are you?
I am, yeah. I come into contact with parents both through my work, but also through neighborhoods, playgrounds and meetups and things like that.
What's your work?
I work for a company called Tinker Garden, so I lead outdoor-based classes for little kids. It's actually national, based in Amherst. We teach outdoor-based play classes for little kids, roughly 18 months to 5 years old.
Is there, in the parenting circles, a move away from heavy media in child rearing?
Definitely in some circles. I definitely know people who are adamantly against any technology for kids, and it particularly comes to mind Waldorf schools. which many of them, when you join the Waldorf schools, they will have you sign a contract saying you will not allow your child under a certain age, and I forget what it is. It might be 8-ish. You will not allow them to watch TV or have computer time or use devices.
Now, they've been around forever, so that's an ongoing discipline. And so millennial parents are still putting their kids in Waldorf schools. So even millennial kids, but it's like a subculture.
I would definitely say it's a subculture, because you definitely see lots of kids running around. I mean, one of the biggest sellers, was it last year, 2 years ago, was the iPotty, where you can have an iPad attached to the potty seat. That was my response too. Yeah.
Oh, if the camera could only see me. Do you know if any of these new preschools on Cambridge Street are Waldorf, or are they all Montessori?
I believe they're all Montessori.
And does Montessori have that?
They don't have that kind of requirement for families outside of the home. Their classrooms, at least for the preschool level, tend to be device-free. I would say the majority of people that I have close contact with are wary of media. So not eliminating it entirely, but definitely limiting its use with young kids.
And are these parents who probably have grown up with it themselves, are these millennial types?
It's Cambridge, so there's a wide
so there's
range.
All different ages.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm definitely older than millennial.
Okay.
But yes, I know millennial parents also.
Oh, they are, because that's what I find interesting.
It's not that I'm not anti-technology at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely not anti-technology, but I think we have to be aware of the trade-offs of technology. But we're conscious of that isn't crowding out imaginative play, outdoor play, hands-on play,
So it's like anything in life, moderation.
Yes.
Tell me about the farm school.
Okay. So the farm school that Catherine is part of, and the forest school movement in general, is aimed to get kids outdoors and playing and moving their bodies and engaging in hands-on experiences.
Baby boomers and Gen Xers, that is kind of how we grew up, being outside. So now this farm school idea is kind of a new movement, yet it's based on old ways of living.
That's exactly it. As this generation of kids has grown up, there's been a greater trend towards keeping kids indoors more, towards organizing and orchestrating their play. There isn't a lot of free play anymore. Most kids' activities are guided, taught, led by adults. So the time they do spend outside is almost always in the form of some type of sports. So it's very organized, very adult-led. Here are the rules, here's how you play it, here's what you do, here's the time slot you do it. Where when you and I were growing up, it would be a bunch of kids like, hey, who wants to play kickball today? And these are where we're going to put our bases, and we regulate ourselves. We know, oh, that one was out of bounds, or that was too hard, it doesn't count, or do over. So we took control of that ourselves. And more kids are not having those kinds of opportunities, and it's really important both for their cognitive development, but especially for their social and emotional development.
Do you find it frustrating, annoying, and obnoxious that even in Cambridge, where probably study after study has been done by these two Ivy League schools that are on either side of us, that tell us what the children need, and we are still not doing it?
It's before I became a parent, I really didn't understand it. Like I couldn't understand it. Being a parent now, it's so easy to fall into the anxiety and the fear of what will happen if my child gets behind. have created a very hyper-competitive society and a hyper-competitive school system.
Why, with all the studies, why haven't we changed?
Ooh, that's a good question. Answering for myself, just seeing how easy it is to fall into that, I think it's much easier. Again, the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
We do what we see other people doing. We also relive the same things that we went through, even if when we look back and like, oh, that was not a good experience for me, but it's part of childhood.
Okay, so you want to start a farm school.
A forest school.
Okay. Let me get the terminology correct.
They're not hard and fast.
It's a forest
school.
Forest school.
Mm-hmm.
And these are popping up all over the country. There's a few of them around the country.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, one in Seattle, or in the tech land of
right,
Seattle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a forest school. All right, and you want to do it locally because how many are in Massachusetts right now that you know of?
Ooh, that's a good question. And it also depends on definitions. I know of probably a handful of them.
So what is it that you want to do here? And you want to do it here in Cambridge?
Cambridge, Boston, somewhere in the urban area, not out in the burbs. Ideally, we're looking for a small group of kids, probably roughly somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 kids who would be outdoors together approximately 3 to 4 hours a day, all kinds of weather, engaged in self-led activities, but with maybe some guidance or some opportunities that we as teachers would present. A lot of opportunities to do things like building forts, playing in the mud, possibly, depending on where we are located, learning how to watch and track animals, which in our vicinity tends to be like raccoons, squirrels, birds.
Yeah.
Not too much more than that.
Rats.
but rats. There you go. Bunnies. So but for a 4, 5, 6-year-old, that's really exciting stuff. We are considering the possibility of working with DCR. There are some pilot programs in Middlesex Fells, which we're talking with them to see how they manage and run their program. So there are interesting possibilities. We're still very much in the exploring phase.
You're in the exploring phase, but I'm assuming you want to get this up and running by the time your child is of age, because it sounds like that's how you want to educate your kid.
That would be ideal.
So if you didn't get this up and running, would you homeschool?
That
age.
That would be probably my next best choice. Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Have you guys given yourself a goal for what year you want this done by?
It would be really fantastic if we could have it done by next fall, a year from now. But more realistically, I would probably be 2 years out.
Okay.
But I don't know if the stars all align.
Yeah.
It's feasible. Just barely feasible that we could get it up and going next fall, 2017.
All right, good doggone luck.
Thanks.
No grown-up interference in the world of your own making. There are some nice grown-ups around, all right, but they don't butt in. Just give us a chance. We can untangle our own traffic jams without any crumpled fenders or crumpled feelings either. And it isn't all sweetness and light either. Ouch!